Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Scott Henderson, and my co-host is Dr. J. We have had this guest on before, and I'm excited to have him back. His conversations are always quite fascinating for me. Jason, who do we have coming on?
Well, like you said, we have a returning guest here, Randy Tate. Those that will remember from the last episode, Randy started his career as a school teacher and a coach. He started a sports equipment business and then had a pretty successful exit from that business. Has gone on to another business, a software company. He's had an exit from there, and now he's in a company called iFlip. And we will talk a lot about iFlip during this episode. Again, like we did before, might get a little bit update because there's really exciting things happening. For those of you that don't know, that are new to the show, iFlip is a fully AI investing platform for the stock market, and it has been phenomenal. Both Scott and I have had some of our personal money there for going on 4 years. I've done very well. And yes, during those 4 years, there have been some whiplash back and forth in the market, and we have still done very well. Yet we'll get to that. So welcome back, Randy. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks, guys. I'm always happy to come on here and talk to you guys. You're some of my favorite people. So anytime I can pop on and help out, I'm all yours.
Love it. Well, one of the things why we decided to bring back Randy is Scott and I were talking, what is it that we really feel like that some of our listeners need to understand? And one of those is sometimes there needs to be a foundation. There needs to be some fundamental principles that people need to know when they're going to be an entrepreneur, when they're going to be a W-2, whatever that is. When it comes to mastering your millions, there's some fundamentals. And I have actually listened to you a couple of times, well, more than a couple of times, several times, probably close to a dozen times. Give a presentation where you talk about money rules. And the cool thing is this is not an academic exercise for you. This is what you live, breathe, and do. I mean, you do it with your business, you do it with your personal life. You have said a couple of times how you have certain times of the year that you and your wife leave town, you get away, and you go someplace and you review those. So let's just kind of talk a little bit what you mean by money rules and why people need to have them.
Yeah, from a foundational perspective, when we talk about creating wealth, mastering our millions, one, we got to get them. How do we get them? We need to have finite rules, in my opinion, around what we do with our money. Now, I'm not talking about, okay, I get 2 lattes a day type of thing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the money that is working for you. Now, money rules can be, there's investment side of it, and then there's just the way in which you function. Let me give you an example. One of the first money rules we created when we realized that most of us, almost all of us, unless we're a rock star or a pro athlete, our W-2 regular job is not going to create us millions and make us super wealthy beyond our dreams. The system's not designed that way. So what we have to do is take a portion of the money that we make and put it to work. Treat it like a little employee. Give it a job. It's got to go do something. And so what we need to do is first sort that out. Perfect example, when I started in this process, one of the first things I came up with was, I'm not going to spend $10,000 or more on anything that doesn't have the potential to produce more money. That's where it started. That's the fundamental place I started with, because I wanted to go buy a new stereo or a new big TV back when they were 10 grand, or a new car or something of that nature. And when you apply that rule will then guide behavior, and your shopping changes from I'm shopping for a new car to I'm shopping for a new asset, a new thing. And as you guys know, An insurance policy is an asset. A stock is an asset. A baseball card is an asset. Real estate is an asset. Those are the things you want to buy because at least they have the potential, and that's where it's got to start. They have the potential to go up. I mean, heck, lottery tickets could be, you could put some in there. And so when you think about it, and this is what we talk about, what do we want to have and what do we have to put towards that? As we get older, we want different rules and different things as we get older and as less revenue comes in or maybe more revenue comes in, what do we need to do with that? When you structure it in a manner that says, okay, I got 70% of my money going into my insurance policy and my stock market account. I got, 20% of my money going into a real estate note. And I got 5 to 10% of my money going into 3 different things where one's a PPM, one's a crypto deal, and one's the new pet rock. And so when you start to do it that way and you track it, what'll happen is you give yourself a hedge. It's not dissimilar from the way our software works. You give yourself a hedge to have a smoother ride with potential upside, again, without risking all of it. All your eggs in a single basket is a bad idea. Diversification amongst asset classes is a good idea. Diversification in the stock market and things like a mutual fund, not a good idea. And so the foundation of money rules came from what money do I need to put to work to get me to the place I want to be so that I'm mastering my money, to use you guys to jump on your title here. I'm mastering my millions even before I have them. And you start putting them to work that way. So that's the fundamentals of what I talk about. Of course, I break it down and we talk about different pieces, but for an overlay, that's where I come from in the world of money rules.
I love that. Some people think when they hear the word rules, as rules cannot be broken and they're fast and they never change. That is not really what you're talking about, right? These are, I don't want to use the word guideline for the fact that you want to stick to them. Like your original one, I'm not going to spend more than 10 grand unless it brings me more money. And that may have changed. I mean, and you review your rules every year. How much do they change from year to year? Much? Have you noticed? Is it pretty much stay the same?
No, changes a lot. I was 30 then, when I started. I've since bought a house that cost more than 10 grand. And a couple cars. But the whole idea is getting the mindset into a position that your money is a tool. You can either put it in a position to make more of it, or you can spend it. Think of it as a seed. You can eat it, good meal, or a chicken. I can eat the chicken, or I can let the chicken lay eggs. I'd rather own the chicken and eat the eggs, and they pay forever. That's the concept. And we, particularly in America, don't subscribe to that. The FOMO and YOLO, you only live once, get the extra slice of cheese on the hamburger, buy the extra size latte, whatever. And I make a joke about it, but we buy stuff we don't need just because that's our behavior. Everybody listening to this call at some point has wandered through the grocery store or Walmart or Home Depot or Costco, geez, of all of them, and said, I'm going to get that. I don't really need 50, but I'm going to get that because it's a good deal. And they're thinking that's how they're saving money instead of saying, okay, I'm going to buy one and I'll put the rest of that money to work. And I'm going to find a way to put it to work. And then it becomes a different conversation of where do you put the money? But first thing you have to do is determine what percentage of my money do I want to go back to work? You don't put it in the bank, they don't pay you any money. Matter of fact, in most cases, they charge you money. To have a bunch of money sitting in the bank is useless. Doesn't mean you don't need liquid money. I lean to the liquid side a lot. I like liquidity. But that's just me personally. You don't have to like liquidity. No, there's no right answer. Like you said, it's not a rule. It's a it's my choice to put that guideline, if you will, in place for me to follow.
Why do you like liquidity so much? Is that from experience? Is that something that you read somewhere? Something that someone that's very smart taught you?
The world changes quickly. Doesn't feel like it changes quickly, but it changes fast. And we don't know what's going to come at us. I don't like liquidity in the bank. I like money that's working and producing liquid. For instance, I might have to weigh the decision. Do I want to put this 10 grand into a CD that's locked up for 5 years to get 6%? Or would I rather put it in a T-bill over at, E-Trade that's going to give me 4.5% completely liquid? I'll take the liquid because in general, for the masses of my money, not for all of it, I'm okay with non-liquidity on some stuff, but I'm always shopping. And so if I've got a vacancy in my investment thesis, if you will, I'm always going to look. Maybe a real estate deal is going to come up that I can't pass, that if I don't have the liquid, now I got to borrow and I'm paying interest. I want my cash to be working, but I still want to have access to a chunk of it. Now I take 15 to 20% of it though, and it can be unliquid as can be. It can be right there parked. It's giving me the clear, safe set of return. With lack of liquidity must come increased performance. That's the way I like to put it.
What do you consider liquid? Is it a certain period of time where you can put cash in your hand?
Yes.
What,
Flat out,
6 months,
100%.
2 days?
Both. I consider I'll put I have no problem. 6 months is my window for a chunk of my money. I like to be able to have access to it in 6 months. If I can get it in 6 months, I can live with that, because usually a deal you can string on another deal if you're waiting for the money. I prefer to have it pure liquid, and I want it to act like it's in my bank account and perform like it's in a high performing model, right? Like I want it to grow at 6 to 12% liquid. That's where I like to get the majority of my money. Now, things that I'm going to have lock it up, I need more than 10%. I'm going to lock it up because things are going to change. Things are going to come along. Now my money's locked up and I could have put it over here and got more. But again, that's me. That is definitely, the word right is not accurate here. It's just interesting the way I do it.
Okay. So with portion of your money, is there a certain percentage that you're okay with to have liquid versus say lock it up at whatever deal you want?
Yep. Usually 15 to 25% of my money is locked up. Insurance products, big spot. I consider that untouchable. Leave that alone. Real estate deals, buy and holds. You could say 6 months on a fix and flip. I'm not doing much real estate right now. I'm not a fan of the market. Or maybe, you got to wait 30 days or 6 months sometimes, or a quarter for the dividend to pay. So if you've got money in a dividend producing thing, you're like, ooh, that dividend is going to come when? I want to hold it till I get the dividend. I just literally did some of that with our new broker situation I was telling you guys about earlier. I didn't close my account because I wanted to wait till the dividend paid. So little things like that. And that's the whole concept behind the money rule. So if you say, I'm going to have 75% of my money or 65% of my money in an investment that is going to pay me equal to or greater than the S&P 500 or close to equal. I mean, the S&P 500 is kind of the benchmark. The purpose of investing is to try and do better than that with less risk than that. That's all of us should be doing. And we should use that as our benchmark. That's what we use at Flip. Also, in that non-liquid stuff, you're not going to often, you'll get, it's interesting to say on the non-liquid stuff, because non-liquid can be anything from the next crypto coin the next NFT that you might not ever get back, or a PPM could last 5 years, could last 10, could last 2. You don't know. When you invest in those manners, you're expecting a greater return than the S&P 500. Otherwise, why wouldn't you just go down to E-Trade or go to iFlip? I should promote ourselves, not them, and put your money in the Spider ETF that's going to produce exactly like the S&P 500 with almost zero cost, and let it ride. We know that in any 30-year window, you're going to make 9 to 11% a year. Inside that time frame, you're going to have a couple of years where you're down 20. So you got to ride that out, which has been the moniker of most financial advisors. That's the problem with the stock market. If you just buy and hold and leave it there, you can't just leave it there, because then even though it may be liquid, there's a chance it could drop, and you could be 2022, you could be 2008, you could be 2002. Think of all those times that it went down. It's not good. Not good. Got to protect yourself.
So I know with Flip, you guys pride yourselves on mitigating risk in the stock market through AI.
Yep.
How are you guys going about that? Like, walk us through kind of a very high level of how the algorithm quantifies risk. What?
It's not an algorithm, it's AI. There's a big difference between algorithm and artificial intelligence. That's why I shook my head right away when you did that. I don't know if Randy saw that, but it's like,
I did.
Maybe even say something, Randy, distinguish that. There's a lot of people out there claiming, oh, ours is AI. And really, it's an algorithm. It's not AI. But anyway, go ahead, Scott, with your question. I'm sorry.
Well, using that AI, how is it quantifying the risk? And is it always just selling? Is that the mitigation, or how are you mitigating for that risk?
Yeah, the hedge is cash. So that's where we'll start. The AI oversees the algorithms, which determine the risk factor of whether or not you're in or out of that particular symbol. So we have a group of what's called smart folios. It's a portfolio, but it's smart because it actually manages itself. The AI manages it. So each individual stock inside one of those smart folios has a base algorithm on it. So you are correct in the beginning, it's got a base algorithm. That algorithm is something that my partner's been using for years. There's several of them. We've got about 5 actually bases. But what they do is they determine at the end of every day whether tomorrow they will be in or out. That's it. It's binary, in, out. It then reports that to the AI. The AI has been learning, and here's how it works. It's tracking mountains of data. It's all about mathematics and data and correlations and something called clustering. So I'm trying to make it real simple. So the idea is that it's going to look at the algorithm and say, okay, Mr. Algorithm, you are within 1 or 2 parameters. It's got 3 parameters up, 3 parameters down. If it's within 1 parameter up or down, it won't do anything. It just agrees and leaves it. If it's within 2 parameters up or down, it'll change it if it's opposite of what the AI says. Now, if it's aligned with what the AI wants to do, then no problem. If it's at 3, if it's 3 against the algorithm, it will override the algorithm. And if that happens consistently for a certain number of days, it'll change the algorithm. So the base rotates as well. Now, people always want to know, well, what's the data it's looking at? It is a large data set that it's monitoring all day, every day, and learning and learning and learning. Things like credit card debt. Believe it or not, credit card debt has an impact on the market. In the last 3 years, we've quadrupled the credit card debt. It's insane. Car repos, home foreclosures, how much money's gone in and out of the stock market, 200-day, 100-day, 50-day, 500-day moving averages of that particular stock based on what was going on in relation to all of those other things. So you start clustering the key things like credit card debt, foreclosures, moving averages, and you take those moving averages, not just from the last 10 days, 50 days, 100 days, 500 days. You want to see what's the activity, and does it correlate to the data? It's not about the news, not what the president say, not what Trump's got going on trial in New York. That's not what actually determines risk of the market. And then, of course, the fundamentals of earnings, report, growth, all the stuff of the individual companies play into it as well. Then it does its little compilation, and it's looking out, the AI is looking out 30, 60, 90 days and trying to determine the likelihood of a significant correction, 10% or greater. We know the stock market goes up 85% of the time. The S&P 500, 85 out of every 100 days on average goes up. So we don't want to try and time the market. We want to be in the market those 85 days. We just want to skip the bigger dips. That was your question. That's the answer to your question. How does it do it? It skips the big drops, so that even if we ended up at the exact same spot as the S&P 500 in 5 years, that's okay, because the ride will be much smoother. I ask people in audiences all the time, raise your hand if you love it when the stock market your 401k takes that 20% hit. How good did everybody in here feel February 2020 when the market was going straight down and you're watching your 401k lose money every single day? And that's what you try to avoid. Smooth out the ride and happen to beat the S&P 500, big bonus. Now, by the way, in the financial services world, those are two unicorns that people say you really can't do. Yeah, you can't beat the S&P 500 without a lot of guessing or options or leverage. You can. And more importantly, we try to do that, Scott, with less risk than owning it. For those of you that don't know on this call what beta means, beta is the risk compared to the S&P 500. If you have a beta of 1, that means you're taking the exact same risk as if you owned the S&P 500. We try to keep our beta around 0.5, 0.6, which means we want to be equal to or greater than the S&P 500 with half the risk of owning it. That's how the AI works.
Okay, so knowing what you know about risk mitigation in the stock market, are there some basic rules that you've learned over this journey at iFlip that you translate and use, say, in real estate? Something similar where you're looking at eyes, hey, I want to mitigate the risk here if I'm going to go buy a fix and flip or a property, because a lot of our listeners are real estate savants or soon to be.
Yeah, the biggest one for me in real estate is the yield curve. The yield curves are currently inverted, which, as we know, means short-term interest is more expensive than backwards versus long-term interest. That 100% of the time in the last 90 years has directly led to recession. Now, it's taken a little longer at this point, but in the real estate space, I did my last real estate. I did a 1031 year and a half ago, right when the yield curve first got inverted. I did a 1031 exchange in one property, turned a single door into 2 doors, and kept the cash flow the same. So I was hedging myself to get 2 doors. I gave up probably a nicer property to have 2-door duplex versus a single family home. And that inverted yield curve and the interest rates are what drives real estate. Right now, in most places in the world, I live in California, you're not going to get a job right out of college and be able to buy a house. You just can't afford it. Interest rates are too high. People don't correlate what a 7% loan does versus a 3% loan. And so interest rates drive real estate. What else drives real estate? Fix and flip, price of materials. You look at the inflation right now and what's happened. Real estate's tough right now because there's pockets where it's not, and there always will be. In the pockets I work in, it's not doable because the cost it takes to fix it doesn't return in the rent you can get for it or in the resale value of it, because the resale value is not going up the way it should. because the interest rates are going up, which forces the sale price down because the payments that can be made are, if you make 100 grand a year, you can pretty much afford a certain payment level, whether that's a combination of interest and principal. So you want to look at that. And if you're a flipper, what's the buying market median incomes? These are more, you want to look at things, the median income of the communities of at least the metropolitan areas. What's that median income going to tell me about the buyer? And so if you listen to the TV and you only follow what they're telling you right now, you're going to be behind. Well, I was behind in 2007, ended up eating one, ended up keeping that thing as a rental for 8 years before I could sell it. Because I was not far enough ahead of the curve. So yeah, it correlates across everything, Scott. If it's not a fixed thing like an annuity or some form of insurance product that you know for sure you're going to get it, you can't lose, and those things definitely hold a place in all of this. You want to make sure that you're paying attention to what's going on in the markets. Here's the other thing, real estate folks. The S&P 500 drives everything. Drives real estate, it drives crypto, it drives gold, it drives silver, it drives the entire economy of the world is on the back of that. Just if you don't believe it, start doing some trending and some mapping, and you'll see where it goes, as goes the world. And so you can think about that. Now, there's time constraints, Scott, for sure. Are you going to be able to buy it? Should you buy it today, tomorrow? Like our software, the AI works. We never, ever, almost never will sell something at the top of the market. We'll also almost never buy it at the bottom. Avoiding the periods of extreme volatility are critical. Just take the piece in the middle. Take what's given you, take the middle, be a little safer. People aren't wired that way. Everybody wants to hit a home run, and be happy with it. So yes, it does work across real estate. It works actually across all asset classes.
When you were talking about taking the middle there, it reminded me of, I've heard it many times, that bears make money and bulls make money and pigs get eaten. It does extreme volatility. I'm going to go all the way to the peak. Very, very rarely does anybody ever get the peak, or can they buy at the absolute bottom. So if you can just clip those off, you're right. And that's, and everyone that's listening, I mean, he referenced February of 2020. The market went down 30 plus percent. iFlip only went down 9%, if I remember correctly. And then the market, of course, started coming back, and iFlip put everybody back in, went to cash, and only, went to cash, got people out of the market. And so they missed that whole dip, right? But then they got it. They didn't get back in at the very bottom, but on its way back up, got in. And that year, do you remember, Scott? I don't remember exactly but most people that were in, say, some of the smart folios did very, very well. 2020 was,
we beat the market by 20%.
Yeah, it was very good. And there's been some since then too. Just
simply
same
with 22.
Well,
same with 22.
Even like, here's a question for you, because I've got mine pulled up right now. Your Red Oil, your Spy Eye, and several of the others are all in the market right now. I mean, we just got done talking about the inversion of the interest curve, but besides BitFlip, which half of that smartfolio is still in cash, what's going on there?
So a couple of things. If you look at Red Oil or conservative, in particular, they are high dividend producers. So your wiggle room, so to speak, is a lot bigger. I have a 5 to 7% dividend coming out of that stock. I can afford a bigger loss to take the risk for the upside. And the energy companies in particular, the AI loves them. And that Red Oil smartfolio has probably been the highest performer since it was turned on in 2020. It's been spectacular. And so when you think about it, if you're going to be conservative, you might as well get the dividend out of it and to offset the risk of a loss. So if the stock went down 5%, you would actually be at a zero. But I won't be surprised to see some of those start coming out. You notice some of the bigger names are out. Tesla's been out. The AI is getting very nervous. At least it feels that way to me. I don't know that it actually feels, but it's much more, we were only in the S&P for a couple of days. It hasn't been in very much. It's really, we're willing to give up that 6 to 9% upturn. See, people earlier this year, maybe about a month ago, people were telling me that how good their portfolios have done this year. Well, this year means since January, the market went straight up. So what happened though? Now reel that all the way back. It went almost straight up in 2023 also. Now reel it back one more year to 2022. What they don't realize is that the starting point isn't January 1. You don't get to reset. Over time, skipping those drops. So we were out of the market largely in 2023. We're still 50, maybe not 50, 40% out right now. And still, if you roll that back to 2022, because we skipped that giant drop, we're still significantly ahead. And so you can't outperform the market when it's going up. You can only outperform the market when you skip the down. And so that's what we try. That's what the AI tries to do.
I'm searching for your implant somewhere where you said the AI is feeling nervous. I don't know what's your interface. I don't know
It's
how
back
you're
here.
That's very
You just see
interesting.
the behavior of it. And you know that the numbers are close because it's more active. It's made moves. And we actually have, you guys are probably interested in knowing this, the next generation in an updated code base is actually going live this month with us. That's been learning now on its own, and we're about to turn the next level on. So it's just a matter of it's truly mathematics. Timing the market is different than saying I can time the market,
which is an element of emotion, right? That's one of the things here. There is zero emotion.
None.
With this AI. I mean, you said a minute ago it's feeling nervous, but it's not. There is no emotion here. And it's like, okay, I'm going to time the market. Oh, I'm going to get the lowest. I'm going to get the highest, whatever it is. I want you to tell me a little bit of what it feels like. I mean, what are your feelings, and do you need to check yourself? You have been part of something that is rapidly becoming legendary. There really isn't anybody that's competing with you. There's people that believe they complete with Flip. You have your Robinhood or different other platforms out there that have algorithms. Yet, as Flip gets more and more known, I mean, what does it feel like to be a part of this journey? And maybe you'll get an answer in another year even better. But just tell me some of your feelings about it. Do you get excited? Does it keep you up at night? Do you get up early in the morning because you're ready to get going?
Yeah, all of the above. It's been COVID, as you guys know, just about killed us because of our business model and the way we're set up. When they turned off events and speaking and in-person things, that was a big thing we had to recover from. Now, as we're growing and changing the world, in my opinion, we're able to hold the actual bar of our vision and our mission tightly. We're here to empower. I say these words there were a lot of people with a lot of input and a lot of argument and a lot of final agreement on these words. We are here to empower. I'm from a different generation. I don't feel entitled. We're empowering. We empower everyone, those are key words, to preserve, protect, and grow wealth. It's not just to grow wealth, not just to go make money, but to preserve it and protect it. And we empower everyone to be able to do it. So as we step out into the world, I guess my biggest worry would be waking up with a horse head in my bed. If you guys reference to the Scarface. The reality of it is nobody does do what we do. We don't compete with Robinhood. Although we do everything Robinhood does, they're not, I don't see them as a competitor. People on Robinhood are just trying to make money. They're trading, they're doing their main thing. Their average account balance at Robinhood is under $100. So they're not growing wealth or changing lives. We're trying to set people up to grow wealth. That's why we don't call ourselves a trading platform. We're an investment platform. And in true fashion of the way that the world works, I give this marketing lesson. You've probably heard me teach this too, Jason. You probably heard it too, Scott. In order to be a successful business, you have to do one of three things. And you have to, in the marketing side of it, you got to tell the world you're either better, you're less expensive, or you make people's life easier. Otherwise, you're just like everybody else. There's no uniqueness to what you're doing. So you need to find something. If you can do all three, you can disrupt an industry. Netflix. The way I look at it, Jason, we are to the Schwabs and the Fidelities and that Ed Jones, Ken Fisher. We're Netflix, they're Blockbuster. Now Schwab's probably Blockbuster. Everybody else is the knockoff video store that's on the corner. It's, Billy Joe Bob's video store. They're doing the same thing. New lipstick, same pig. We're literally doing it differently. We are using real AI, which does not exist, as you mentioned earlier. And we're empowering people to change their wealth. Now, here's the beauty of it. With a system like ours, if you're 20 years old and you work minimum wage the rest of your life, you set up proper money rules and you put enough money and you don't do anything else except stick your money in flip and one of the basic smartfolios. At 65, you'll be a multimillionaire. Most places, it's really hard to do that without any risk associated with it. If you're in your 30s, you can probably get there. And if you don't have enough money to get started, how many financial advisors do you know, guys? You guys know a lot of them. How many of them if I'm a kid, 25, I've saved up $3,000, I walk into the mahogany desk, I sit down with the guy in the suit, and I say, I'd like you to invest my $3,000 for me, please. How many people will take that account?
They wouldn't get to the desk.
No, it wouldn't even get to the desk. So what does that guy do? What does that gal do? They're forced to not have their money work for them and grow very slowly, or they're forced to take big risks. That's what they're left with. And so it feels really good to know that we're doing something that's going to impact the way people do their life, especially after they are done working. That's the way I like it. That's the way I look at it. We're still small. We're still growing. We're fighting a good fight, and I'm excited about where we're at. And I do wake up every day excited. I don't sleep much past 4. So
That's AM, not PM.
yeah, AM. Yeah. So yeah, that's who we are. That's what we're doing, and we're just hoping to help the world. We love partnering with people like you guys. We love all our partners and the people that work with us all over the world. We're in 9 countries now. We have over 20,000 subscribers, 2,000 accounts funded, over 40 million in assets on the platform. So still little, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
The rate of growth is impressive. And
Yeah.
with that rate of growth, it's going to be massive very, very soon.
Yeah,
That's
we think we'll
something
get to 100 million by the end of the year.
okay, we'll hold you to that.
Go ahead. I'll accept it.
Love that. Everyone, this has been a really great podcast, Randy. We really appreciate it. And we want to make sure that everyone knows that we're going to put a link in the show notes to where they can get, access to this software and have an account. One of the things that is really phenomenal is that you have a certain size of account. It's a very nominal fee. And yet you have access to this cutting edge AI that you're not going to get that service for regardless of how big of a portfolio you have when you go to the mahogany desk that you referred to. You might get a person saying, "Oh yeah, I'll take care of you and I'll do this and I'll watch it." This is being watched essentially 24/7, 365. I mean, every minute of the day it's gathering data and doing stuff. The mountains of data that he talked about it's very, very impressive and probably outside the scope of most people's comprehension. So, any last questions or anything, Scott?
No, Randy's been someone that we've appreciated, that not just in the stock space, but overall, not money rules, real estate. We've looked to him and Kelly for quite a bit. But thanks for coming on, Randy. We always love it.
Anytime, man. This is fun. I like talking to my friends. It's easy.
Well, guys, thank you for tuning in. As Jason said, if you'd like to connect with our guests, check the show notes down below. We'll put all the links there. If you'd like to connect with Jason or I, make sure to hit us up on your favorite social media platform. And if you like the show, give us a 5-star review. It really helps us out. Last, remember that mastering your millions all starts with your mind and your team. Make sure they are the best. We will catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.